because sometimes it's all good. We have badge system, we have young people who is ready to start to earn badges. And then the question is, and what is the added value of these badges? A young person, for example, earned this badge, and then what happening then? And as it happened with us, for example, 4 years ago, it was, okay, we made the system for young people for developing the soft skills or for the employability, but who will recognize these badges and what young people will do with them? Who from outside, if there are stakeholders who are interested in this program, so who will unlock new opportunities for young people? Organizations started to look around in our city, looking for such stakeholders who can give added value to these badges and who can one or another way help young people further with their employability. So what we are going to, okay, the example is clear now. So life situation, what is the added value of the badges that we have? And today what we are going to do, we are going to think about stakeholders that you have in your local community or in your context, recognition by whom will give added value to your badge system, or if you don't have a badge system for a moment, for the learning program that you use for your young people. And for this, we are going to map endorsement stakeholders, those organizations who we think are important. Their endorsement will give added value to our badges, and important that they recognize our badge system. And the first step will be to make a list of these stakeholders. And then when you have the list of the stakeholders, to place them on this scale, because there are different types of stakeholders. For example, when we were thinking about the employability, the first stakeholder that we were thinking would be very important for us, it's a local business company. And because if these skills that young people get through our program will be recognized by them, it will be easier for young people to find a job in their company, for example. And for us, it was very high value of them, but at that moment, we didn't have any connection to these stakeholders. So it was difficult to achieve them. So, for example, if you will have in your list stakeholders that have big value, but they are far from your organization, don't have connections, you don't know how to reach them, then you place them in this angle. But, for example, there was employability office. For us as well, it was very important that they recognize the badges and they recognize the value of these badges that young people will bring them in our system. And we was in the same office and we have very good connections with them. So in this case, I would place this stakeholder here. How you can place stakeholders and write them down. This is a Jamboard. So you just put sticky note and for local employee office, just save this sticky note and then you can move it. First, you can make a brainstorm and make as many sticky notes as many stakeholders will appear in your mind when you think about your badge system or about the learning program for whom you will think about the endorsers. Pharmacy. I'm just writing something. So you get as many stakeholders as you have in your mind, and then after you make this list of stakeholders, you start to put them according to scales that we have. Scales are a bit unusual, but there is an explanation. Like if they have higher value and easy to achieve, it will be down, like yes, more focus in the center. If it's, for example, pharmacy, for us it was no value and also it was difficult to achieve. I do like an example, so they will be very far from us if we think that we are here. You can also delete some stickers if you see that they're not needed anymore. And you will have like from 10 to 15 minutes to go into groups or according to your organizations, like we have here UNICEF, we have Youth for Exchange and Understanding, but also we have big Lithuanian team, for example, and then we have some separate countries. we will, these countries where we have, or organization, we have one person, we will put you in the same group so you can support each other in process of creating this list of stakeholders. But anyway, you can continue to work on for your country. There are different Jamboards, so be attentive to what is written here. This is the name of organization or name of the country. So just find your Jamboard, your board, and start to work.
We talked about a lot of interesting stuff in our group, but maybe not so much still mapping who could endorse. He had some very good ideas how to try to find endorsers for a badge system with soft skills. He could maybe share something because it was really interesting. He had done a lot of research, background research already, what he could work with. So that would be interesting if he could tell some more about that. I'm now trying to write my own. I didn't come that far yet.
Okay, maybe if it's concrete endorsers, then you can put them on the map. It's very important actually to identify those endorsers, those stakeholders for the next steps. And Horacio, you want to comment something? So then we move to another group, and to see what's happening in use for exchange and understanding, I will name groups.
Basically, what we came up was that we arrived to like our member organizations because we don't have so much activities on the local level. So we were thinking to reach them. So if we get their endorsement, because we have them all around Europe, it would be easier to have this endorsement. And also, since we are based on Brussels, we were thinking to reach some European institutions such as like European, but this is what like the main ideas we came up with.
Thank you. When I see, like, for example, European Youth Forum, it's difficult to achieve. It's also sometimes we can identify some stakeholders through whom we can achieve those stakeholders who are difficult to achieve for us. Yeah, so that's why it's very important to place all the stakeholders. Maybe one of your member organization have a good connection with European Youth Forum. So it's also about investigate how to reach the stakeholders later. Okay, thank you. And then I will invite Unicer. How was your discussion? I entered one moment to your room, but you were speaking Italian. I understood a bit, but not so much. Enrico or someone from Unicer team?
Okay, I start. Then some of my colleagues want to add something. They will be free. So we had a long discussion about schools, for example. We organized like more or less internship for students at secondary schools. So one of our greatest stakeholders are schools. We thought that we can easily convince one single school to use badges and about the importance to recognize skills through badges. But then it will be just one school. So it will be, the value will be low, but we will be quite easy because we also have a personal relationship with some teacher, and we know each other from years, and they trust us, and so they will probably like the tool. On the other hand, it's difficult to have a greater impact on the school system. This will be difficult. That's why we identified some steps which are convince a group of schools. Then they also build some critical mass and try to convince we have some regional educational office or authority. And then the final step is to convince the Ministry of Education, for example.
So going little by little from the single school, and then
this would take years probably. On the other hand, we also thought about to do the other way around. So it would be more efficient if we convince the Ministry of Education first, and then the ministry goes to the local level. But it's very difficult to achieve. So this is
they
how
are difficult to achieve and high value. And did you think about some other stakeholders who can?
We didn't have time, but we were developing like also some thoughts about the companies we are working with. It would be a great value for them, especially for them and for people on the labor market. From our point of view, it's important. It would be important for them to accept to use badges, because it would be easier to make to match between the students and the company while we are organizing the internships. But then it will be also useful for companies to search for proper workers when they get graduate, for example. And also this is, we didn't have time to discuss this, but I think that the approach is the same. The approach is the same. You can convince one single company, then association of companies, and then also Ministry of Work. The same, more or less, the same strategy.
So maybe you can place high value and easy to achieve these specific companies you are working with, yes, because they can unlock new opportunities for young people and give the value to the badges. So if I get this badge, I have this opportunity, it's unlocked to me this opportunity. On the other hand, it's easy to achieve because you already have connection. And then also they can influence on educational system as well if it's recognized by companies.
Yeah, of course.
It's easier to. Okay.
Especially, and I would add, because especially the contact with companies is that you're sending people on the internship there, so to actually work in the companies. So companies really see what people are experiencing there, and I think what are they learning there. So I think they would be totally fine agreeing to endorse badges for that experience.
I think also it is very difficult to convince companies more than schools, I think, because they are always very busy in running the company.
But sometimes also we can be surprised because they also need people with some competences that they are looking for. So this also just a matter of talking with. Okay, thank you very much. And we have a Lithuanian team, no? How was it? I know that in Lithuania it was a very different level of experiences as well, but just shortly, briefly, how was this process and some conclusions? Lithuania?
Hello. I don't know if I can say the opinion of all the group, but I think we discussed the roots of the badge system because our discussion was about, does the badge value depends on who creates it? For example, if a local youth center creates the badge, and then it has to persuade the local business that it created a good badge, a valuable badge, which really shows all the qualities gained and so on. So our discussion was more or less about that, and we didn't have much time to put those sticky notes, but we did some.
Okay, on the platform anyway, in the module 3, this task is there, so you will have more time if you understand the principle, then to work with it and to map stakeholders. But of course, it's very important. The first step is to identify which concrete system you are doing this for, or if you don't have badge system, for which learning program you will do it. Keep in mind the concrete system. It's always easier to identify the concrete stakeholders. And about value, yes, also you can come back to yesterday's presentation of the Nereus, where he also was presenting what makes the value of the badge, what are the elements that are creating this value. Thank you very much for sharing. Thank you very much for start to work on the mapping. It's not easy task. It takes some time, but with experience, more we do, easier it's to make it, yes. And sometimes I always say, maybe we don't need to start from very big steps and very big stakeholders and endorsers. Sometimes it's better to start from the small steps and to see whom we have around, really whom we can contact and with whom we can start this process. And then step by step reaching bigger fishes, bigger stakeholders that can give value. But sometimes we don't need even them to give this value for the badge system. If we have it on local level, it's enough to work with stakeholders on local level, and vice versa. We don't have time now to do the second exercise that we were planning. It was about the concrete step for stakeholders, but Laimonas will explain where you can find it on the platform. And anyway, it's very important first to finish the first step with mapping and then to move to another step with the planning, how to reach them.
After this Zoom meeting, there will be a 2 weeks break, and we give you a bit of homework for these 2 weeks. For the homework, we are looking at the module 3 is there. You just went through a little bit of mapping potential endorsers, just trying out the tool itself. You can do it at your own time, and you can do it also individually about your own context. And again, as I told you in a smaller group, you just tried out stuff, but then you can really take your own context and your own community and see who are the ones who could give external value to a badge. And you will see a task. So that was the one we talked about. And then we see another task, which is about approaching endorsers. So the homework will be the following. First of all, you can make a copy of the template from the Google Docs, or you can simply just download Word version of a table. The table looks like this. Basically, once you did this mapping, then you have your own quadrants. The priority 1 is here, higher value, easy to achieve. Priority 2, lower value, but still pretty easy to achieve. So we ask you to start focusing on organizations or people or experts, like in Ingrida's example, that approaching single experts, it's much easier than organizations. So in this table, you can write your name as well here, so we know that it's coming from you. And then write down specific endorser that you would like to approach. Identify why this endorser is valuable, what value can they bring? Is it their important name? Are they very known? Are they respected in the society? And also think, what can they offer in exchange to a badge? And here you saw in Eurodesk example, they can offer internship, they can offer a possibility to meet and talk, a possibility to visit their office, they can offer sometimes maybe a discount, or to put people in some kind of priority list to access some services, let's say, or to visit organization. And then how can you convince them to issue endorsements to them? These are the 4 fields, and then we ask you to identify at least few. And maybe you will not manage to make all the 4 fields, all the 4 quadrants, but at least we ask you to focus on priority 1 and priority 2. So on the Jamboard, it would be this corner and the corner up there, so that you really try mapping and seeing exactly what these endorsers have to offer for you and how you can reach out to them. And once you have it done, we ask you to share here in this forum. So just click write reply, and it will open the field where either you can attach the document, or you can write briefly, oh, we managed to identify those endorsers. That's how valuable they could be. Or maybe you even manage to contact them. If you already have badge system running, maybe you manage already to check with them whether they would be ready to endorse your badges. And it would be very interesting to know what was the experience so far, so that other people could learn from it. So that's the task, and we wrote this task is until the next Zoom meeting on the 23rd of November. And that's when we meet again, 10 o'clock Central European time. We'll meet for the 3rd training. We're going to look at how were the experiences so far, what did you manage to achieve by that moment, and we're going to go deeper into further steps, how we go on with the endorsement. Meanwhile, we will be adding more content on open badge system creation, something that we did in a previous training. We will collect materials and we will add perhaps another module on badge system design. So don't be surprised that new module will appear. And we will be adding a recording from today's good practice example about Eurodesk badges here in the second module. And we might be adding more examples as well.